Hello, everyone. Welcome to 345 Tech Talks. Today, we're going to talk about the strategic role of data in your business. I'm here with Paul Brown. I'm Andrew Rivers. We are owners of 345 Technology, and we're going to talk about data. So, the first thing is setting the scene. Data used to be, data science and data used to be very different. We come from a situation where what used to happen is that you'd have some sort of database somewhere, someone would write a report, and that's kind of what data and BI meant. And then from that we moved on, and there was data warehousing, where you kind of designed a thing of, but it was still ultimately you designed what data you wanted to capture, and then you captured it, populated your data warehouse sometimes once a day using ETL, extract, transform, load, and then you got reports off that. And now the new way of doing data is totally different. So I'm going to flip to the I'm going to flip straight to the pretty picture, which is, for those of you on the audio one, you can look at this on our website. The data engineering pack will be up on our website, and you can see the diagrams on there. So this is the diagram of the strategic role of data in your business. So because what we realized, I suppose, is that data comes from all angles in your business, doesn't it? It's not just it's not just what you define up front. It's the fact that those data are all over the place and it's all valuable. So where should we start to talk about this, Paul?
So I guess we should probably. It's a good point. I mean, the people that are watching this probably looking at this diagram and thinking, what the heck?
What are you guys on?
What are you guys on? Because it's clearly not a very nice and precise.
No, it's very nice. It's very nice, but not precise.
But I think it actually sort of, in a very nice way demonstrates what we're trying to discuss on this session. So the center cloud that we have here is in effect our different perspective on how we now see data in the business. And we've, in terms of the way the diagram works, is that there are lots of external influences in business in which data can be generated, in which there are sources of data, and the way that we're viewing this is that all of that data is valuable. It sort of, in a way, doesn't really matter where it comes from. If it's influencing your business in some way, then you probably should be thinking about capturing it.
Yeah.
Whether you decide to look at that data immediately or not, it's always worth capturing that data, because you don't know at what point in the future you might want to be thinking about, okay, so I've captured this data. I'm now asking these new questions. Should I be, with the data that I've actually captured,
so
is that data valuable to me in terms of the questions that I want to ask?
So the key to this, and it's the key to a lot of things in data science, is that the important thing, in some ways, is to ask the right questions. But what you don't know right now is what questions you're going to want to ask in a year's time. What questions you're going to want to ask in 5 years' time. So we capture everything in case that forms part of the information we need for our questions. And there's so the other thing it kind of strikes me about this is that there's kind of three bits of this. One of them is, and it's kind of front and center, like I just said, it's asking the right questions. Becoming a data-driven business is all around asking the right questions and then finding the answers to them. And then the second part of that is looking at the entire map of all the data in your business, because the data comes in from all the different parts. It comes in from your customers, it comes in from your suppliers, your partners, your business partners, trading partners, it comes in from all the, your locations and systems, your branches, your outlets, your machinery is generating data. And there's also public data available, or data that you can subscribe to that you pay a fee for. So there's and so we just look at this whole landscape of data, and then the bit in the middle, like I say, is actually when you become a data-driven business, it's making that the core of what you do, which is really, it's making all your different data sources drive what you do in your business. Does that sound, is that too simplistic, or does that sound fair enough?
I think it does. I think that, the key point there is that you can get data from lots of different places, and ultimately you should be thinking about storing that, because you don't know from day one what the questions are necessarily that you want to be asking of that data. So store it, and then figure out later what questions you need to be asking of it.
So, and if we're going to store it, the first thing we've got to do, I mean, obviously this takes us through the sort of what we regard as being the four stages of data engineering. So the first thing is obviously we've got to receive and capture it, because if we're not receiving it or capturing it, then we aren't even off the ground, are we? And
that's it. And we're sort of terming this the sort of data maturity model. I don't know whether this has been used before, or but in effect it's 4 stages, and it's a progression through these stages that a business would take. And some businesses may be more advanced than others in terms of where they are along these stages.
And indeed, departments within businesses can be at different stages.
Exactly that. So, but as you say, the first thing you need to do is receive. You can't store until you receive, and part of that is obviously capture. Now, capture in this sense actually means just store the data somewhere. So this is pre-processed data. You've pulled it in from potentially transient places. And you store and capture somewhere in its raw form. So you're not really doing any sort of processing at this point. And then once you've got that data captured, you may not use it for some time. You may immediately have some questions you want to answer. So the next stage would be we need to potentially filter. So this is where we start to do some processing of the data and get it into a form in which we can then move on to further stages.
Yeah. So the second phase that we call store and categorize, that's where we're actually putting it in a more permanent home. So receive and capture is kind of the at least get it somewhere temporary, and then we're looking to get good data in a more permanent home.
And it might actually only be part of that data. So you may store lots and lots and lots of data in its raw form, but the way in which you potentially filter that data, maybe sanitize it, store it, may well be in different types of store dependent on the data itself, the type of data it is, and what sort of questions you want to be asking of it. So it might just be a data slice that you're taking at this point, rather than we stored all of this data. We're now going to take all of this data and then stick it in one store. Yeah. That's not normal.
Because that again, putting a data science perspective on that is data sets, isn't it? That's the sets of data that you have, and some pieces of data that in their raw form can become part of more than one set of data, but it's those sets, isn't it, as we go through.
Exactly. And then the final point there is categorize. So here you're making some sense of that data. Maybe you're producing some metadata to make it easier to analyze. and using you can use a number of different services, or create a number of different data models, taxonomies, and so on, that would allow you then to make sense of that data in later stages. But this is effectively what this stage is about.
So that's almost a preparation of a set of data, so that you can then start to ask the questions of it.
Exactly.
And that brings us on to the stage 3. So stage 3 is where we analyze and predict. And there's a lot of possibility in there, isn't there?
There is, and so this is where it really gets interesting, because there's certainly a focus in the wider technical community at the moment on AI. Now, years ago we might have been talking OLAP, OLAP cubes and things like that, but now it's everything's under the umbrella of AI. But in effect, it's a bunch of different services and techniques and so on that you can use to analyze the data.
I mean, one of the other things that kind of once upon a time we're talking about OLAP, and which is the data warehousing kind of model. But in between that, there's the kind of the MapReduce was a big thing, and it still is a big thing. Which is crunching big amounts of data. But it's not. But MapReduce is more of a programmed process than a machine learning or an AI thing, which is kind of where we're moving on to now. With a lot of the tools that are coming out, it's instead of someone deciding what stats they want and writing something to crunch those stats, AI and machine learning are then, it's almost like you're asking the technology to do that for you.
Yeah, and machine learning is a good example. I mean, when you look at what machine learning effectively does, it's just running some algorithms over sources of data. So those sources of data, given that we've gone to the effort of receiving, capturing, and storing, and then categorizing the data, those sources of data could be a number of data sets or data slices that we've created within stage 2 to feed machine learning experiments.
Yeah.
Which goes on to the other part of stage 3, predict, or to come up with some answers that you've derived from your analytical processes in stage 3.
Yeah, and then moving on to stage 4. The final stage is the kind of the decide and act, because when we talk about AI, for example, we talk about typically the modern kind of definition of AI is kind of it's machine learning or deep learning, but with decisioning on top of it. So you actually need to do something with that rather than just crunch the numbers. It's that kind of decisioning on top. And there's a number of different ways in which we can do decisioning. Both automated, semi-automated, or assisting people in their decision making. But the point is that we're to close the loop on this, we actually need to do something different. There's no point in us receiving, capturing, storing, categorizing, analyzing, predicting if actually at the end of it we aren't going to decide and act.
That's right, and I guess you saw the typical reports that would come out and would be on stage 3. At the end of stage 3, you'd probably have this. That in the old days, you'd have a nice report.
That would be a report, and then it would be up to someone to do. That's back to you, management. Decide and act.
And then instead of producing a nice paper report that you've printed off, you might actually then start to think about, well, actually, you know what? All management loves a good dashboard, so let's produce some dashboards so they can see on a screen the paper report that they used to get, which is all great. And then modern dashboards through tools like Power BI, they allow you to interact with the data in a very simple way. But ultimately, us as humans are making decisions based on what we're seeing, whereas the fourth stage is also taking that further in. Can we automate in some way the data that we're seeing? Can we automate the response that we want to have, based on whatever that data is? So whatever's in that report and in that analytics, and that's really the ACT part as well. Is do we actually, the simplest one? Do we raise an alert? Let's say we're this is we're looking at, I don't know, potential security breaches.
Yeah, or it could be this transaction is potentially fraudulent. Let's block it.
Exactly. So there could be a blocked transaction, blocked payment, or there could be somebody being alerted, or there could be shut down the external access to the system in the event of something potentially really bad going to happen. So and so that's decide and act. Now the other way that you can act is, well, I've suddenly got this new insight. Then this new insight could feed back through the loop.
Yeah.
So the other part of ACT could well be, I've got all this new data. Well, let's store that alongside the data, the raw data that we've already captured. So feed it back through
a different experiment. Yeah.
So send it back through the receive and capture, and then use that as new data to analyze in a later stage. And in the old days, that was in somewhat in that fashion. There was something called complex event processing,
mm-hmm.
which is a way of receiving events at the sort of the base level, the raw level, and then combining those events together to come up with new events, new insight, which then feed in, which feed in with other events, which then move up. And so you end up this sort of moving up this hierarchy of value in terms of the data that you're seeing, from very raw sort of network level type events and infrastructure events, all the way up to some sort of business view of what that means. And so they're going around the loop in a way, in the data loop. ACT could be just feed it back in.
Yeah. So really, let's. I mean, this is really the whistle-stop introduction to this. We're going to do more on this as we go on, but that's a fantastic start to the whole subject of how to make your business data-driven. And so, recapping, it's to receive and capture, store and categorize, make data sets, analyze and predict, which is the first part of data science, and then decide and act in the engines for that. So those are the fundamentals of making your business data driven. And I think we'll wrap this one up there. So thanks a lot, Paul. And thanks a lot for watching. We'll be back with another Tech Talk very soon. Okay, bye now.